Welcome, everyone, to our first episode of Year 5 of the Bracket Report, brought to you by Delphi Bracketology. I'm your host, Brian Tonsoni. Joining me today is our Director of Media Credentials, Steve Painter. We are 2 months away from Selection Sunday, and we want to make sure you are as informed as possible about who will be in the March Madness bracket. You can follow our work on our website, delphibracketology.com, and also on Twitter at Delphi Bracket. Send us any questions. We'll try to get back with you. This year, we're going to start like we did last year and just talk a little bit about the data and the terms that you'll hear us use over the next 8 to 9 weeks of the show. We attempt to predict what the actual NCAA selection committee will choose. We don't have our own opinions, but we use the following data, and we'll try to share an example of how that works. You will get a lot of talk about the net ranking, which is the NCAA sorting tool. It is a mathematical formula of offense and defensive efficiency, who you played on the road, all that kind of stuff. We believe the net is very important because it is the NCAA tool, but there are outliers. Right now, Texas Tech has a great net in the teens, but not a really great resume. They haven't won big enough games. And on the other end, Memphis has a high net, but they're going to be in the 4 or 5 seed range discussion because they have won a lot of good games. And speaking of good games, Steve, we like some quad 1 and 2 wins as well, correct?
Absolutely. Yeah. Quad 1 wins, I think, maybe the overall number one metric. There's a lot of metrics we look at, but you got to have those quad 1 wins. The top teams, as far as those quad 1s, Auburn is just unbelievable. They've got 10 quad 1 wins already. The next closest would be Oregon, who's got 8. And Kentucky's got 6, so they are in really, really good shape. Everybody else has 5 or less. Right now, if you've got 3 quad 1 wins, that's a pretty good thing. So for Auburn to have 10 is pretty unbelievable at this point.
We also look at losses. You don't want bad losses, so quad 3 and quad 4 losses sometimes could be a deciding factor on a seed line or maybe even inclusion into the bracket. So if you have a favorite team, you don't want us to discuss those quad 3 and 4 losses. Illinois recently lost at home to USC, and that is kind of a borderline 2 or 3 loss, which could make the difference in a seed line for Illinois. And how do you determine the quads? Well, we don't make that up. NCAA has some divisions on home and away and neutral numbers, and there always is a cutoff. And for the home, it's 0 to 75. So USC was 72 in the net, and now they're 76 in the net. So that loss for Illinois goes back and forth from a quad 2 to 3. The committee is aware of those cutoffs as well, but you will hear us talk about bad losses. Your team wants to avoid them. Steve, moving on to where people win games matters too.
Yes, of course. To advance in the tournament, you've got to win on neutral court to advance. So the committee, takes that into account. If you have a really bad road record or bad on neutral court, that can hurt you. As far as some of the teams that are doing really well on the road, Duke right now, they're 4-0 on the road. 5-0 on the road, and that is really helping them get up to that number 1 seed. Another really good one, Florida. They're 7-1 in quad 1 and quad 2, and again, they're pushing. They're one of the ones in consideration for a 1 seed right now. A team that is not doing so well on the road and it's going to have some work to do is Maryland. We've got them as one of the bubble teams, and right now they don't have a single road win. And so there's plenty of opportunity in the Big Ten, but so far they have not taken advantage of it. And so Maryland has got some work to do.
And it's easier to get those quad 1 or 2 wins on the road, but there are other analytic numbers that play in to the team sheet. You'll hear us talk about the team sheet, which is everything about a certain team's resume. And KenPom, strength of record, KPI, Sagarin, BPI, wins above bubble is the brand new stat, and that is, do you beat teams? If you're on the bubble, what would your average record be? The higher the wins above bubble, the better. I think those things are used by the committee to break ties on teams that are very close when you compare one team to the other. But all of those numbers are on the team sheet and can be used by committee members to argue for or against or to vote for or against teams when it comes to selection week. And that leads us here at the end of segment 1 to our question of the day. College athletics has changed so much recently with all of these mega conferences and conference realignment. You now have 16 teams and 18 teams in a conference. Steve, question of the day, what's that impact of the conference realignment going to do for us as bracketologists or just bracketing in general?
Before the committee, they're not supposed to really look at, conferences, but in reality, it kind of matters. And so you have a history of how many teams from each conference might make it. But now with the Big Ten and the SEC, the Big Ten has a potential for 9 or 10 teams to make it. And that's kind of unheard of for the Big Ten. I don't know what the record was before, 7, maybe 8. But 9 or 10 is realistic. And then the SEC is really unbelievable. 16 teams in the conference, and right now we have 12 of them in with the potential of 13. And that's just unheard of, for almost an entire conference to make it in the field. It shows you how strong the SEC is and how much parity there is. But yeah, it's a new world with these mega conferences, and the whole, the old rule of you shouldn't have more than 6 or 7, you kind of throw that out the window now.
Yeah, they have more opportunities to win in non-conference. And then if you win in non-conference like the SEC did, now every conference game is going to matter a little bit more. So, Steve, we just got about a minute or two to go over some teams that are moving up and down. Who do you see currently moving up and down in our bracket?
Not to be a homer, but Purdue has really been moving up. They've had 6 Big Ten conference wins in a row. 4 of them are on the road, which makes it even tougher. You know how hard it is to win on the road in the Big Ten. Most of those wins have been double-digit wins, so they just really continue to help themselves. We've moved them up. I think, maybe even a week ago we had them around the 5 seed. Now we've moved them up to a 3 seed now. They're in really good shape, and they have another chance for a 7th Big Ten win tonight against Ohio State. Maybe a team that's moving down a little bit would be UCLA. They've lost 4 out of 5. They continue to lose on the road. And so I will say this, though. Their last win, they finally kind of got out of their slump. They just really whipped it up on Iowa. And then there's a big game tonight versus Wisconsin. So they've got a chance to kind of turn things around. But, in the last week or two, they have definitely been on the way down.
And if you want some fun, go watch Mick Cronin's post-game news conferences. Yeah. He's been on a roll for quite a while. For me, it's the Louisville Cardinals are moving up. They weren't even considered to be possible NCAA tournament team, and they have really won a lot of games. They're up to like a 5 or 6 seed for us. And moving down is Gonzaga, a team that a lot of us probably would assume would be a top 2 or 3 seed. They have lost a lot of games. They lost 2 conference games for the first time in a long time this week, including giving up 100 points at home against Santa Clara. All right, that'll do it for our first segment, so stay with us here on the Bracket Report as we will take a look at our seed list and talk to you about some key issues on each seed line.
Hey there, my name is Jake Query.
And I'm Derek Schultz.
And we are part of, actually the entirety of, at least from an on-air standpoint, Query and Schultz on the ISC Sports Network. It's appropriately named. It's charitably award-winning. And Derek, now we venture into season number 5. Hard to believe.
5 of them. 5 of them. Can you believe it? 2 best buds talking Colts, Pacers, Indiana sports every Tuesday night, 7:30, ISC Sports Network, and on socials as well.
It is made possible, of course, by the people who watch and listen every single week. We are most appreciative. We look forward to season number 5.
Leaps ahead, still on his feet. Stevens lunges. Are you kidding me?
Champions of Marion County.
Unbelievable! Touchdown.
Living up to that last name. Wabash has the lead for the first time today. So that was going to be a highlight reel. Oh, baby.
Yeah, you can celebrate after that.
Welcome back to the Bracket Report. I'm Brian Tonsoni. I'm here today with Steve Painter. And now we're going to take a look at what we do is put teams in seed lists. We're going to look at seeds 1 through 11, and then the other seeds are generally those teams that will automatically qualify from smaller conferences. And so we're going to take it each seed line and talk to you a little bit about what we have to discuss. So, Steve, start us off with our top seeds, please.
Top seed is Auburn. They're just it's just a no-brainer. They're no doubt the number 1 overall seed. They've got 10 quad 1 wins. 9-1 on the road and neutral court. They are number 1, followed by Duke, Alabama, and Iowa State. And right now we've got them as pretty solid top 4 teams.
The 2 seed line for us is Tennessee, Florida, Kentucky, and Marquette. And really, Tennessee and Florida have the best chances of moving up right now, but these 4 teams are very, very solid. I really like what Coach Pope has done with Kentucky with a brand-new roster in his first year. They had a tough loss against Alabama, the 1 seed Alabama, and I'm a big Shaka Smart fan. I keep rooting for Marquette. I think those are top 8 teams on our first 2 seed lines.
Mm-hmm. At the 3 seed, we've got Kansas, Purdue, Oregon, and Michigan State. Again, all those teams have the opportunity to move up, move down. I would say Kansas probably has the best opportunity. They're going to be playing this coming weekend against Houston, which is a really big game. And then Purdue is pretty good shape. They just have to keep winning the games they're supposed to win.
Purdue has 2 nice home games against Ohio State and Michigan. We'll be there to cover it for Delphi Bracketology. Some quality teams there. And then the last of what we call the protected seeds, the top 4 seeds that will be predicted to go into the Sweet 16. We have Illinois, Mississippi State, Ole Miss, and Houston. And if you heard a lot of SEC teams, that's because a lot of teams are in that top 4. And as Steve mentioned earlier, there are 12 teams from the SEC in the tournament. You got to put them somewhere. But Mississippi State and Ole Miss just recently played. Mississippi State beat Ole Miss, and these teams are really making a push to be some non-traditional teams moving up the bracket. Keep an eye on every game in the SEC is a must-watch game almost because it has bracket implications, and I like Coach Underwood at Illinois. They lost a game at Michigan State this weekend and dropped from the 3 to the 4 seed.
5 seeds, we have Texas A&M, Wisconsin, Memphis, and Louisville. A team to keep an eye on is Wisconsin. They've got a really tough road game coming up tonight against UCLA, and this is a chance for UCLA to get out of their rut. But Wisconsin, a huge opportunity for a big road win.
How Wisconsin wins every year, Steve, I'm not sure. They're a little, as a fan, they're a little aggravating. To me. 6 seeds. We have West Virginia, surprise team with the new coach. DeVries has done really good there this year. They beat Iowa State just recently, which is one of our top seeds. Arizona, after a struggle of losing several games early, has popped up and started to win. And Dusty May, another first-year coach that is doing wonders at Michigan, and a really good turnaround at Missouri for Coach Gates and his program. Those are our 6 seeds currently.
And 7 seeds, we've got UConn, St. John's, Georgia, and Gonzaga. It is kind of strange to see UConn at a 7 seed. You just kind of expect them to be right at the top. But they're having a few more struggles this year. They're probably a solid team to make the tournament, but they're definitely not the same team that we're used to seeing.
Yeah, Gonzaga is the one that's surprising for me. You slot them into a 1 or 2 or 3 seed.
Yeah, for sure.
And we talked about that earlier in teams going down. 8 seeds. Here's some more teams that I think are surprising. Baylor just recently lost at home to TCU and dropped them down. Creighton, Utah State, and Clemson round up our 8 seeds. For me, Creighton is moving up. They struggled earlier. They had some injuries. Their lead point guard was out for a while, which had them out of the tournament, then into the 9-10 seed. Now they're moving up. I would think Creighton, I think, just beat UConn. So look for them. Clemson has been up and down, but those are our 8 seeds.
Yep, 9 seeds. We've got Texas Tech, St. Mary's, Oklahoma, and UCLA. And again, this kind of shows you those big conferences. We've got Oklahoma, which is SEC now, but I mean we're probably talking that's probably about our 10th team in from the SEC, and then UCLA, another team that's currently in from the Big Ten.
So to let you in on how we appreciate the conversation back and forth, we have our meetings on Tuesdays and Thursdays with our students, and then Steve and I talk when we're at games. But, Steve, you're higher on UCLA than I am. I'm throwing you a curveball. It's not on the script right now. I have the UCLA a little bit lower. I think I was probably wrong in that because I saw the recent 4-game losing streak, but it didn't give them credit for some nice wins. Why are you a little bit higher on UCLA than I am?
I think they've been kind of dealt a bad hand as far as their schedule. I know the coach Cronin was complaining about that I think he's seen the Statue of Liberty from the plane twice already. And it just kind of shows you the craziness of the coast-to-coast conference. And I think they've had to go to Rutgers. They've had to go to Michigan, and they played Michigan at home. But they've had several coast-to-coast trips. And that's got to be tough, especially on a college kid. So they have not done well, but I think the talent is there, and I think they have I think they're a better team than their record shows.
And the whole tragedy in Los Angeles has to play a role, too, just in stress for being in that location. So, several people have UCLA as a 7 seed, other bracketologists. They're leaning more your way than my way, so I think you're probably right on the Bruins. The 10 seeds are teams that are barely hanging on, and if you're a fan of these 10 seeds, you need them to win. But we have Pittsburgh, North Carolina, San Diego State, and New Mexico. North Carolina is one of those outliers. They have a really good metrics, which was the net and all of the mathematical formulas, but they haven't won very many games. They only have one quad one, just recently lost at home to a Stanford team, and they're only 3 games above 500 currently, or they're 5 games above 100, at 12-7, but they have 1-6 in quad one and 4-0 in quad two, so that is just on the bubble for making it. They've got to keep winning some games before they accumulate too many losses and fall out of the tournament. New Mexico is the automatic bid right now for their conference. If they do not win the conference tournament, they would be a very questionable at-large bid. And now, Steve, we are at the point where a lot of bracketologists and social media always go to. They list the top seeds, and then they list the bubble with the teams, last 4 teams in, and then I'll take the first 4 teams out, and we'll have a little bit of discussion about that. But who is really on the cut line for us right now?
Yeah, our last 4 in, and these would be teams that we would have slated having to play in the first 4 in Dayton. Vanderbilt, Maryland, Nebraska, and the last team in for us is Cincinnati. And you notice 3 of those 4 are from the Big Ten SEC. So those are the ones that, it'll be interesting to see what the committee does if they reward more big conference schools or if they'll go more mid-major. I'm a big fan of the mid-majors myself, but right now we've got those big conference teams right on the edge as the first 4 in.
And that leads us to our first 4 out, which is Central Florida, UCF. They have some nice wins. They're a mathematical problem too because their math numbers and their net high in the 70s. And just recently, we've only seen maybe in history 2 or 3 teams with a 70 net make the NCAA tournament. But they have some nice wins. I think they have 3 quad one wins, just lost by 1 or 2 to Houston at home. They'll have some opportunities. I think they have a nice game tonight against Kansas, maybe, that they can go on the road and win. But UCF, SMU, Texas, Iowa, and just past that is the Indiana Hoosiers with our 5th team out. We'll talk about them when we discuss the Big Ten. Steve, let me throw you another. We got a few minutes here in segment 2. When we historically have looked at the bubble, I'm going to ask you 2 questions. What is your number 1 criteria for teams on the bubble to get in? And what do you think the committee does at times? Because we've had some surprise selections for the last 4 teams in by the committee. Your thoughts on those 2 questions? Yeah,
it's tough because when you're talking about the bubble, and especially for smaller teams, you've got the quad one opportunities are not always there. So sometimes they may only have 2 quad one wins, and that may be enough to get them in just based on their opportunities. So I think the committee has to look at other things too, like that road record I think is important. And then certainly non-conference strength of schedule and non-conference strength of schedule is definitely going to play in there because if you're a mid-major, you've got to have some competition to back up that resume.
So I agree. Non-conference strength of schedule seems to be a real key block for teams when you vote in the last 4. Notre Dame got in, being fourth in the ACC a few years ago, surprised us, but they had a couple nice wins, and the conference was down. So I think the criteria kind of gets thrown out the window when we compare seed line 3 and 4 with the criteria. I think the committee picks one or two. But for me, non-conference schedule, strength of schedule, and who you beat. And so right now, Vanderbilt is a mix of both. They just beat Tennessee, which is a great win, a top 1 or 2 seed. That kind of win will impress people to vote for them, but then their strength of schedule is not great. It's in the 300s for non-conference, so they didn't schedule strong. And then you have UCF. They have won on the road at Texas Tech, who's a 14 net. They have defeated Texas A&M, which is a top 4 seed. They've also beaten Arizona State, which is a bubble team. Those are the 3 quad 1 wins. They have the most quad 1 wins of teams that are out, but they have a 73 net. I would like to see you beat people in order to get in the tournament, so I think who you beat matters, but it'll be interesting to see going forward how that will play out. And then one last thing before we end up this segment here is there a team that is the most difficult for you to seed right now in our work?
It's tough. I mean, this is a really tough year. We've said like the teams that we're looking at putting in typically don't have if you look at their body of work, it's not really what we're used to seeing for a team that makes it in. So somebody's got to make it in. So I think this year's bubble is extremely tough. And just like you said, those teams that we have, really all of them, every single one that for those last 4 in and the first 4 out, your Iowas, your Texases, your Marylands, your Vanderbilts, you could have an argument for each one of those to be in, and you could have an argument for each to be out. So I think those are the toughest teams right now for us.
And I will add the Houston's, Texas Tech, those that have really great nets but don't have good resumes. Houston's a 3 with only 1 quad 1 win right now, 3 net with only 1 quad win. Those teams are tough. The Memphises, the outliers are really tough on where they fall on our seed line. Mm-hmm. All right, we'll come back after a short break, and we'll talk about the Big Ten because we're local here, and we'll share with you a few games to watch that will affect the bracket. You're watching Bracket U from Delphi Bracketology.
Hey there, my name is Jake Query.
And I'm Derek Schultz.
And we are part of, actually the entirety of, at least from an on-air standpoint, Query and Schultz on the ISC Sports Network. It's appropriately named. It's charitably award-winning. And Derek, now we venture into season number 5. Hard to believe.
5 of them. 5 of them. Can you believe it? 2 best buds, talking Colts, Pacers, Indiana sports, every Tuesday night, 7:30, ISC Sports Network, and on socials as well.
It is made possible, of course, by the people who watch and listen every single week. We are most appreciative. We look forward to season number 5.
Leaps ahead, still on his feet. Stevens lunges. Are you kidding me?
Champions of Marion County.
Unbelievable! Touchdown!
Living up to that last name. Wabash has the lead for the first time today. Said that was going to be a highlight reel. Oh, baby.
Yeah, you can celebrate after that.
Welcome back to Bracket U from Delphi Bracketology. I'm Brian Tonsoni. This is Steve Painter, and we're located in Indiana, so we're interested in the Big Ten, the expanded Big Ten from the East Coast to the West Coast. We have some tiers of teams that we'll go over here real quick. I think you're going to find Illinois, Purdue, Michigan State, Oregon as a top tier, and then you could add Wisconsin and Michigan. Those 6 teams, Steve, I think are going to vie for the better seeds and the Big Ten championship.
Yeah, I agree. And some people argue Michigan, they should be at the right there at the top because they are right now second in the Big Ten. They're tied with Purdue for the conference title, but conference standings doesn't necessarily mean the most. It's all the other factors: your net, your strength of schedule, the quality of wins. So Michigan still got some work to do. They have an opportunity this week, but right now they're kind of that second tier, I'd say.
And then the mid-tier, which is a big mid-tier, is UCLA, Nebraska, Ohio State, Maryland, Iowa, Penn State, and Indiana. And possibly we had Northwestern at the bottom, but when you look at their net is higher than Indiana. They might be in that. That is 8 teams after the first 6 that could be. So you're talking 14 teams that are really pretty decent basketball teams. Only 9 or 10 are probably going to make the tournament. Anyone there stand out for you?
I look at like a Penn State. Penn State has really had some nice wins. I mean, they beat Purdue, and who did they just beat?
Rutgers last night.
Rutgers, okay, yeah. And Rutgers got a lot of talent. So it's like, a lot of these teams, like a Penn State, they kind of the eyeball test says, they're a good team, they should be in. But there's just only so much room, and with that many good, talented teams in the Big Ten, right now they're sitting out.
And this year in the Big Ten, only 15 of the 18 teams will make it to the Big Ten tournament, which is hosted in Indianapolis. So the bottom 3 will be left at home. And we would have USC, Northwestern in there, maybe USC, Washington, Rutgers with 2 outstanding freshmen are really struggling at 10-9 this year, and Minnesota. But, Steve, the SEC, the Big Ten, and even if you're a basketball junkie, we'll throw some mid-major talk at you here soon. There are a lot of good games on all of your streaming devices and places that you watch college basketball. You've picked 3 games that you think people should tune into this week. What 3 games do you have?
First one is Wisconsin UCLA. That's tonight, and it's just really interesting. You've got a team that's been kind of on the slide in UCLA. And then they just turned around and had a huge. I think they beat Iowa by 25 some points, and they've got that opportunity against a pretty good Wisconsin team. And then you turn it around, Wisconsin has a huge opportunity for a big road win. It's going to have an impact on not just conference standings but seeding as well.
Well, go ahead with your other 2.
Oh, the other one, Michigan Purdue. That's this Friday. Right now, those 2 teams are both have 1 loss in the conference. They're both just 1 game behind Michigan State in the standings. Purdue, they're definitely going to have a big advantage at Mackey, and you would expect them to win. But you turn around, Michigan, this is their opportunity to have that argument that they do belong in those top seeds. So if they could beat Purdue at Mackey, you've got to move them right up with the big boys. And then finally, this weekend, an interesting game, Houston, Kansas. Houston was a really interesting team. They have a 3 net. All their metrics were great, but then going just a week ago, where we're talking the meeting, they had no quad 1 wins. Well, they've had a good week. They've finally got their first 2 quad 1s. They're lower quad 1s, but that helps. And you're just used to Houston being one of those top teams in the tournament, and now they've got a great opportunity for a big road win at Kansas.
And so for me tonight at 7 o'clock, Mississippi State at Tennessee. Those are 2 of the protected teams. Mississippi State has really come on this year. Tennessee recently was a 1 seed, but has run into a couple losses. So that's a big game for each one of them. I also I hate to do it, but Duke versus Wake Forest. Wake Forest is moving up on our bubble, outside bubble. This would be a huge win for them if they can knock off our number 2 team, Duke. And then Tennessee versus Auburn, a 1 seed versus a 2 seed. Auburn has their star center out Broom, and they've won a couple games, but the games have been really tight. This is a chance for Tennessee to get back on the winning. So look at the Volunteers. They have 2 games tonight, Tuesday, big quad 1 win, opportunity to get back right, and then Auburn on Saturday. They can move right back up to our number 1 seed. So those are some games to watch. We're going to end the show talking about what's new at Delphi Bracketology. We are on a weather delay. We missed a day because of early dismissal last Tuesday to come and do the show. Now we're on e-learning because of the cold weather. We were not able to bring any students. We will have students back with us hopefully next year or next week, weather permitting. But we have 25 members now, including an outstanding graduating freshman class. We meet on Mondays during homeroom, and we have class Tuesday and Thursday, so we're really ramping up what we're doing. We have a new media department, as several students really like graphics and videos, so you can see that on our webpage and on our Twitter, what these young people are creating, and they're teaching me a ton about how to use different things on the internet to create new graphics. We also have been getting photography passes. Thankful for Purdue University allowing our student photographers who are in photography class at Delphi to be on the court at Mackey, on the field at Ross-Ade, taking pictures. You will see those photo galleries on our webpage. If you're a Purdue fan or just interested in what students can do, check out our photographers. There will be one tonight at the game as well. So that'll do it for our first episode of Year 5. We'd like to thank Greg Rakestraw and ISC Sports Network for allowing us to do this and hosting our show. Please keep in contact with us on Twitter at Delphi Brackets and follow us on our webpage. We'll have a new bracket out later this evening. That is DelphiBracketology.com, and we'll cover everything NCAA. So I'm Brian Tonsoni for Steve Painter. Happy hoops watching. We thank you for watching our show. Until next week.